Okay. Okay, we're all good to go. Hi, everyone who joins in and watches us today. I'm really excited because for the first time we're having a three-way Zoom, and I have two of our Global Girls Associated authors. So I've got Carly Lane and Karina Kilmore. So today we're talking to Carly Lane about her new book, Take Me Home. Hopefully I can show it. Whoop.
Oops.
There it goes.
Invisible.
I think. Yeah. So thanks, Carly and Karina, for joining us. So Carly lives on the mid-north coast of New South Wales. She's the proud mum to 4 children and wife to one very patient mechanic. And she's lucky enough to spend her day doing the things she loves most, being a mum and writing stories set in the beautiful rural Australia. Take Me Home is Carly's latest novel, which is a glorious lesson in life, love, and finding your true destiny. So, also just want to mention as well that thanks to Alan and Unwin, if people ask a question during the Facebook Live, they'll have a chance to win a copy of Take Me Home, which is really, really great. So, thanks for joining us. Carly, would you like to maybe start off by telling us a little bit about Take Me Home?
Yeah, it's a book that came about after my husband and I went to Scotland at the end of 2019, just before the world went crazy. Very, really lucky that we got to go when we did, because I'd hate to think what would have happened now. I don't know when we're going to have to travel again, but it wasn't kind of a book I knew what I was going to write. I just knew while I was over there I had to write a book, and then I had to come home and try and convince my publisher to let me write a book that was set in Scotland, which was a little bit interesting. But yeah, so it was just really lovely. When I came home, I sort of came up with some ideas and thought it'd be nice to include a lot of the real places that we visited and we stayed at and people we met and things. So it was lovely to sort of work that all into a plot, and yeah, it kind of felt like going over there again as I was writing it.
Mm-hmm. And one thing that I really liked when I was reading it is how you brought in the grandmother into the story. So is that the first time you've done something like that?
Yeah, first time. Yeah, I've had another book that had it sort of started going off on like a reincarnation thing, which I was wondering at the time writing that what I was doing. But this one was a little bit different. Yeah, I wanted to include Gran. Originally, I was going to have Gran going on the trip with her, but it kind of got a bit it was just tricky with the plot, like, because I knew Gran sort of wanted to go home, and I thought, well, we can't have Gran dying in Scotland on a holiday. That would be just devastating. So I just didn't know what to do with her, and then this idea sort of came up. So, and luckily, I think it worked. I think it was because like Elle didn't actually really believe it to start with either. I think if you make it a little bit someone a little bit skeptical about it the whole way through, it's at least a bit more believable and easier to sort of get your head around, I guess. So yeah, it seemed to work, which was
Yeah, I really liked that part of it. Yeah.
Carly, tell us about that handsome man behind you.
Oh, this is Jamie Fraser. He a lot of the book that I actually was lucky enough to include was my own love of Outlander, the book series I read about 20 years ago. And that was part of the reason we went to Scotland. My husband was watching the TV series with me and just sort of remarked that, it'd be cool to go and see the places they film these in. So, I was booking the thing before he even finished speaking. And we went on an Outland tour while we were over there to see all the places that they filmed in and parts that were in the book. It was just really lovely to include the Outlander sort of side of it too, as a book lover. And so Elle and her grandma share a love of the series, and yeah, they go on a day trip and see all these places, and I just thought it was really lovely. Then I got to mention Jamie whenever I could, so that's really hard. He came around for the with our launch. We had a Scotland theme out at one of our local halls. And so I ordered him specially for our Scotland thing. And that's just the cat moving him. He's not really alive. That could have been awkward. Oh, there's the cat.
Here we
He
go.
nearly fell. He nearly fell on top of you.
Oh, dear. Yeah. Oh, dear. Well, you know.
Yeah, sharks.
Yeah.
Oh, dear. Yeah.
I've-
So, yeah, no, it was lovely just to be able to put the Outlander sort of theme through it, which was really good.
We've got lots of people watching, which is really great. Got a question from Helen. Helen says, do you have any Scottish heritage? Helen's saying she does, and she feels a really strong connection with Scotland when she visited in 2016. And I'll have to say myself, I have Scottish heritage as well. So
Me too.
yeah, I really
Douglas family.
Yeah.
So really interested to hear about your side of things.
Yeah, well, that was the other reason we went to Scotland, was because I've got it on both my parents' side, and have always grown up with, on my dad's side, it's the MacLeods, and grew up with the whole Dunvegan Castle and all the legends that went along with that. So that was one of the really exciting things I was looking forward to, is going over and seeing this castle, because growing up we used to, say that we had a family castle and all this sort of thing, and it's lovely if you've got that sort of thing in your background. But yeah, and it was really lovely to go to a lot of some of the parts that weren't included in the book. I got a bit carried away. I think the editor actually said, I think we better cut some of this out. It's really interesting, but it's taking away from the storyline. And it was like, but yeah, and visiting a lot of the sites where battles and things happened, and horrible things. So they did some terrible things to each other back then, but a lot of those stories I was able to go and see the actual places that had happened in. It was just so amazing to be able to see. It just feels so real when you go there. And yeah, so that was the other side of our trip, doing a little bit of family research. And yeah, I think again, that sort of, when I came home, I was able to write that into the book with Elle's family history a little bit too. I sort of could relate to that, searching for something, and living with a family story that's been passed down, and going to see the actual place. So it was sort of good to be able to entwine all that into the storyline.
Yeah. Carly, can I just step you back, not to your ancestors, but to step you back in your writing career, because you have an incredible 18 books under your belt. So how did it all start? When did you start writing? Why did you start writing?
I was always a really avid reader and just used to go through them like nothing. I got to the point at one stage where we moved to Newcastle, actually, and I'd always lived in smaller towns, so it was quite daunting moving to this big city. It was before I had children, and I wasn't working at that stage when we moved there, so all I did was read and become a hermit in this house. And I finished reading the types of books that I wanted to read, so I decided to write one because, it's got to be easy. That it wasn't, and I think that's where it started. I just sort of wanted to learn how to do it. I didn't know how to do it, had no idea. It was before the internet, so in the prehistoric times when you had to actually try and find information, and I knew nobody that wrote, or there were no writing groups around me. When I eventually got back into it again later on, we were up at Townsville and Mount Isa and all these sorts of places, and I didn't know any other writers, so I had to sort of wait till the internet came around, and then I was able to join groups and just learn, I guess, how to do it for a while. And that's what I did for probably a good 15, maybe 12 years before I actually got something sort of publishable. I'd been sort of dabbling in it until I sort of really sat down and decided I wanted to know how to do it. And joining Romance Writers of Australia was a really good start. It got me, I learnt so much from them, and the conferences, and getting in front of actual publishers and all that sort of thing, and the contacts you make. So it was really when I joined that things sort of got serious. And then, I was writing romantic suspense actually to start with, but there wasn't very much of a market, and still not much of a market for what I was writing in Australia. And it was after going to a conference and hearing what the publishers were sort of looking for, and that I went home and just decided to try something different. And I just started with a blank page and write what you know and all that sort of thing. And I ended up just writing about, well, not my own life, but something that I'd experienced, which I'd moved with 3 children from Townsville back down here to where I'm, my hometown. And so I just wrote about a woman that had moved back home with her kids. And it was just very lucky that rural fiction was just kicking off, and they were looking for stories, you know, set in small towns, and mine had a small town. And so I accidentally fell into rural fiction. I wasn't really thinking that's what it was, but yeah, so I've sat there ever since, which has been really good.
And how did you actually get your first manuscript published? Did you put it out to agents or to publishers?
Well, with North Star, which is my first book, I submitted it to the Friday Pitch. Alan and Unwin have. I think they still got it. And I think a lot of publishers have got it now, where you can submit, you know, 1 chapter or a couple of pages or something. So that's how I got mine in front of Alan and Unwin, which was really lovely. You know, I was more surprised than me when I got a reply, and and it wasn't really I don't know, I guess in my head I pictured it so different. I pictured, you know, a big phone call and all sorts of things, but it was sort of just like an email, and very much I had to rewrite what I had sent them, and do quite a bit of work on it. So it wasn't exactly just accepting it from what I sent and everything was great after that. It was quite a lot of work, and then they eventually did accept it. So it was great. It was still a dream come true. It just wasn't that, I guess, that Hollywood image you think of when you sort of see it on TV, on movies. Oh, wait. But yeah, so yeah, through the Friday Pitch was how I got mine published.
And Belinda's wondering if all of your books are standalone.
Most of them are. I've got one series, The Callahans, which is The Wrong Callahan, Mr. Right Now, and Return to Stringy Bark Creek. They are a series, but you can still actually read each of them as standalone. And not a series, but I have one character that appears in 2 books, which were Someone Like You and the other one that I put out in December, something like this. So those 2 are sort of loosely linked, but they're all pretty much standalone.
And Geraldine's wondering, after like writing so many books, where does your inspiration come from for the storylines of your books?
It's really, it mystifies me too. I often try and think, how do I think of them? A lot of the time, as I'm writing, I might, I don't know, think of something or hear of a situation, and that sparks an idea of some sort. And so I quickly write part of that story down, so it's sort of sitting there, and then go back to what I was doing. And thankfully, I've had enough of these so that I've got like 3 or 4 on the go, which is really good, because then I can sort of go back later and try and remember what I was writing. But it just depends. One of my books in particular, that one of the early ones, Poppy's Dilemma, that was based on a true story that happened around here just after World War One. And my cousin actually brought me a clipping from a newspaper back then. It was a coroner's report of this horrible incident that happened, where a returned serviceman had did a murder-suicide with this young girl after a dance one night. And it was just something like that that sparked this story, that there was something about his story that really got me, that I really wanted to tell his side of the story, because even though he'd done this horrible thing, there was obviously a lot of other reasons, you know, coming back from war, getting thrown back into society and all this sort of thing. And so that sort of sparked a book on its own. Sometimes it's just, I don't know, something you might hear about in the news and you just start thinking about it. It's just, it can, I don't know, I really don't know. It's hard if I sit down and try to deliberately think of something. So there are things that often will just come to you out of the blue. So you can't really count on them, which is what I found out the other day when I had to start first of my 4 new books I've got to write from scratch. Yeah, sitting down to think about stuff is really tricky. It doesn't seem to work that way. You've sort of got to just be really open and listening for things, and your mind's, I guess, always ticking over anyway, so it sort of latches onto something usually.
So what is it that you latch onto? Is it like a character or a place or a plot or a storyline? What is it that attracts your attention?
I have written ones based on all of those things. Sometimes sometimes it's an occupation. You think, oh, I'd really love to write a story about a paramedic or and then you sort of got to try and think, well, how would I write that in? What would they do? What's their problem? What's the town like? Where's an issue? What's the love interest going to be? All that sort of thing. So they're sometimes they're harder to write because you do have to try and think up all these things to sort of make that story. Other times, if it's a theme, the last of the Stringy Bark or the last of the Callahan series, which was Return to Stringy Bark Creek, it was actually based on a theme. I wanted to talk about rural suicide, so I sort of wove that into characters I already had that were in the background, and I gave them their own story. But if you've got a theme, sometimes the storyline tends to come together a lot easier because you sort of know what you want to talk about. But when you've got just a character or a conversation, I've written a book on a conversation once. I just heard this little dialogue exchange between two characters. I had no idea who they were, what they were doing, or but it was just whatever was going on in that little conversation. So it just depends. It's weird. Your mind must always be ticking over, and it's quite bizarre, I guess, being an author. I don't know, but sometimes you just latch onto something and you just write it down.
Yeah. And Annalise mentioned about your books that are written under Carleen, is it Blackmore?
Blackmore,
yeah. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
They were my first lot of books I started writing when I was doing my military romantic suspense. I was reading a lot of the military suspense books, loved them, and they were all written by men, and I love the action, and I love that they were like movies. But I got a little bit upset because in all of them they'd be pages and pages about the guns and the thing, and it'd be like I'd be flipping through it to get back to the story. I'm not interested in all that. I just want to know, what the story is. And then they always kill the woman off because she's got to be the hero's reason for revenge or something. And I thought, this sucks. Why the hell are they always killing off the woman? So I wanted to write something that was like that, but it had equal characters. That the woman could be handy. She might not be the Rambo, but she could be more useful than dying. So that's when I started my I had a Marine series that I wrote based on 4 Marines, and I still to this day love that series so much. I just, one day I hope I can get it published. I self-published it, but I just love my Marines, and they are so gorgeous, and they have been those characters that just become so real that they sort of stick with you, continuously. So that was what I was sort of writing, which was hard to find a category for them here. Actually, well, anywhere if you're going to mainstream publish, it's a bit of romance, it's a bit of military, it's a bit of suspense, and they like to sort of pigeonhole you in a genre that has to be a certain sort of way. So it's very hard.
That's a good point, because your books cover lots of genre, don't they? How do you classify yourself or your writing?
I am rural fiction, and I love rural fiction. Very proud to be flying the rural flag. I do feel, though, that being marketed so rural, I think it could possibly limit the people that want to read your books, because they aren't, they're set in rural towns, and I think it's just as important to highlight rural towns as it is to have it set anywhere in the world, sort of thing. But I write rural fiction, and I've just started with this. Take Me Home is more women's fiction, but it still has a rural theme to it. So, I mean, I don't know. I do write a lot of different, I guess, scenarios in my books, even though they are rural. There's a lot of, some of them have got suspense, some of them have got a history storyline in the background. Romance, some are more romantic than others. So it just depends on the characters and the book I'm writing at the time. If, sometimes I start out and I actually think this book isn't going to have any romance in it, but somehow somebody turns up and it just turns into it, and that's fine. I mean, I love writing romance too. I think it's lovely to have a bit of romance in your books as well. But yeah, I think with the rural fiction, the women's fiction side, which is Take Me Home this time, a lot of my usual readers were, I guess, a little bit dismayed that the romance doesn't really come in until the end, and that's because it wasn't supposed to, because this book was more focused on Elle and her grandma and the journey and Scotland and you know, the family side of things, and that's what sort of makes it more of a women's fiction, I suppose. And it's great, but I mean, again, the romance came into it, but I didn't want that to overshadow the book, because it was about Elle trying to find what she wanted to do with her life, you know, what she wanted to achieve. And I think it would have been a bit of a cop out if she just had a big romance and ended up with this perfect guy, which is, well, it's not that bad, but it sort of wasn't solving any of her problems. And I think she needed to find herself first and work out who she was before she could have some kind of relationship. So yeah, and I don't think anyone didn't like it because of that, but I know a lot of my normal readers were like, but the romance didn't happen till the end and we didn't get enough. So it's yeah, it's just something different.
And I'm interested to know, how do you find that Australian rural fiction appeals to people, readers in that and other countries? Do you find that at all?
Yeah, it's a thing, because the books are only published in Australia and New Zealand, like the territories of only Australia and New Zealand. But I do have a lot of international readers. I guess because they can get them through Amazon and stuff as well. Yeah, I've got lots of international readers that just love the Australian side of fiction, and it is a shame we can't sort of get rural out there a lot more. I mean, a lot of Australian books are going worldwide with a lot of different things now, but the rural fiction, rural romance, for some reason, doesn't seem to be getting picked up by the overseas publishers for some reason. And I don't know, maybe it's because they are marketed a little bit too rural. If maybe they had a little bit less of the in-your-face rural, maybe it would appeal. I don't know. Maybe it's because of the covers. Maybe it's just, you know, they change covers for different countries for different reasons. So maybe maybe that's what's not appealing to them. I don't know. But it is a shame, because I feel like the stories are universal. It doesn't matter just because they're set in Australia. I think they're everyday problems and issues that everybody deals with.
I wonder then if your new book, Take Me Home, if that may be picked up by a publisher overseas then as well.
Yeah, well, I would hope so. It hasn't yet. But yeah, I think that was a good way to show that it can be universal, because yes, it was an Australian over in Scotland, but to show the Scotland side of things, and we found that too. We're not all that different. Like they say the same things. They say their own things, but they still say the same things. I don't think it's something that would put readers off from overseas. I think people would understand what we're talking about, even if it's very Australian.
Yeah, that's right. And what about your writing routine, Carly? How do you, I mean, you've got 4 children, and how do you find time to write?
Well, admittedly, these 4 children now, after 10 years, have mostly grown up. So, yeah, my 3 elder ones have all grown up. I've only got one at home now, which is, you would think it would be easier. Actually, it's not. I think I was more productive when I had 4 really young, under my feet type children at home. I got a little bit, because I do writing full time now, at first it was really good. I was on a really good routine, and, you know, kids would go off to school, I'd sit down and write, get home and I'd stop, sort of thing. But I don't know, I'm blaming COVID, but it's probably not COVID, but it just sort of all went out the window lately, and I found I wasn't writing very much. I was really slack. I'd go off doing something one day and I'll write tomorrow, and that's the first time that's really happened. I've always usually write every day, probably not weekends, but I do try to write every day. But yeah, things got a little bit hectic, and family and everything happening, so the routine's gone out the window. But normally I do try to sit down and write most of the day. Sometimes even, especially with new books, there's a lot of time where you've got to research or do the stuff that's not actually writing, but does contribute to the book in the end, but it feels like you're not really doing anything when you're not actively writing. But it was busy, very, very busy in the beginning. But like I said, I was writing so much more when I was sort of limited with time and things. I think that was the big thing. If you've got to be doing something, you do it, sort of thing. Whereas if you've got all day to do it, you tend to sort of put things off and do all sorts of weird things. But I've got to get back into that schedule.
And Kelly's got a really great question. She says, do you find that you have less editing to do now, that you're getting more, like the more books you write?
In some ways, it is getting easier sometimes, but I still, I don't know. No, there's still a lot of red marks come back when I've got the editing. I don't think my punctuation's ever improved, much to my editor's horror. But I guess some of it is improving, but I find I really enjoy that process, especially the first edit that comes back, the really big one where they're looking at the structure of the story and stuff, because I don't really brainstorm with anyone. I'm not in any, I don't sort of have that sort of thing that a lot of writers probably do. I find that it's really helpful when they come back and suggest different things, like, do we need more information here? Should this sentence be elaborated and maybe more detail put it, like, I don't know, when I write, I just write it all out, and then I think it's helpful to have someone else look over it, even though it is the editor, who just then suggests different ways, and they're not always big rewrites, so I guess that is improving, but it's helpful to have that other opinion and somebody else looking at it like that. I quite not enjoy it, but I do find it interesting.
I'm the same. I write on my own, and then the first person who sees it, it's sort of like, oh my goodness, there's all these unanswered questions, and it was a blue shoe here and now it's a red one, and you don't notice as you're writing, but you're doing like 2 books a year. Yeah, that's a phenomenal rate.
Yeah, I was like, actually until lately I was working 2 books ahead, so it was, as long as I kept writing, it was fine because it was all flowing really well. But then COVID or whatever happened, and things got a little bit more real. So yeah, I'm sort of starting my first like deadline type writing, which is interesting, a little bit stressful, but I don't know. I guess you do. I know that I can write books sometime. I've written a book in 4 months, 3 months, whatever, occasionally, and that's what I had left to write a whole new book for this year. So I guess when you've got that in mind, you'll do it, and I make sure now I am doing it. I am seriously sitting down and writing because I have to. When I get a bit more ahead, I think it'll be nice to be back in that relaxed state that I like to live and work in without deadlines and pressure. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I just tend to have my books lined up, and I write better when I know I've got something already started, which is why when I think of those ideas and start writing, I can come back to that and sort of keep going, whereas staring at a blank screen is quite daunting. If you don't have that idea or something to sort of start with, it can be quite it can be really daunting. At the moment I've got a 4-book contract that I've just signed, so I need 4 books that I don't actually have at the moment, which is not how I normally work. Normally I know I've got the 4 books. Normally it's 3 books that I normally would have 3 books started, but don't have them. So I had to really sit down and start thinking, but it's good. I'm working on 2 at once at the moment, so that I know there's definitely 2 there. It's a little bit frustrating in a way, because I've got like 30,000 of one written and 20,000 of the other, and I'm thinking if I just wrote all that in one book, I'd have one nearly finished by now. But again, it's good because I know I've gone back to the one I want to finish, and I know that other one's sitting there, and I pretty much know what's going on with that now. But I mean,
how do you keep track of that?
Yeah, I was just thinking that as well.
Separate plot line.
Yeah.
It is. It's nice. I don't know. It's not as tricky as it sounds. Well, I don't know. Maybe it is tricky. I do occasionally write the wrong character there. I start writing and like, oh no, she's not the other one. So I am expecting, especially in this one, to have at the editing process, who's this one? Like, where the hell did she come into it? So there could be a few slip ups that way. But I don't know. I think I know each story, and because they're different, I guess it'd be probably hard if you're writing the same thing all the time, but I know they're two very, very different stories with very, very different characters. And it's kind of nice because I don't plot at all, usually. So I get to a point in my books where I have no idea what's happening next. And I sit there thinking, well, this sucks. I don't know what I'm going to do with this. So it's really good because then I can put that down, go to the other one, and then in that time, I don't know, in the back of my head somehow it's been fermenting and suddenly it's like, oh yeah, that's right, so we can go with that, till I get to a point of that one where I can't do it and then I go back to the other one. But I think I need that because I must not have a very big concentration span or something. I don't know. It helps to sort of refresh your mind, I think, to be able to chop and change a little bit.
And are you able to tell us anything about the ones you're writing at the moment?
I can, because they won't be out till about 2023, 2022. But I started watching a series. See, this is my problem. I think I've been watching too many Netflix things. I feel like that is what is at the core of this problem, really. But I started watching a series called Our Girl, and it's a English series about army medics, female army medics in Afghanistan and stuff. And I just love the idea, and I sort of was thinking, like, I do have a military theme in a lot of my books, in some of my books, and I've always had the male veteran, and I just thought, I want to write a female veteran. I want to write a medic who's been to war and come back, and it's Australian. And yeah, so I've just been really into that at the moment. So I've got an Australian female medic, and I've been researching and interviewing real medics and getting the lowdown on all that. So hoping to use a female medic and just the issues. And again, that's stuff that I've addressed before in other books. The whole, these people are just thrown into this world where they've got to, they're just so aware of everything, and then they come home and they've got to try and fit into our life. Like, we take so much for granted at home. We don't have to worry about so many things, and it must be really, really hard for them to come home, and just that adjustment and family again and all that sort of thing. So I really want to explore that from a female, I guess, point of view. So that was one. And then my other one I'm writing is, she's a journalist, and there is bones discovered on this property from 70 years ago. And so because she's a journalist on a break, she's actually gets drawn into this story and goes off to research what happened 70 years ago. So it has a bit of a World War II background theme in it, which I'm really enjoying, really loving writing that history background. I haven't done one of those for a little while, but really enjoying getting back into my history side of stuff. Yeah, so they're coming along slowly, but one of them will be due in October, so I've got to get one of them finished.
Yeah,
I'm not sure which one.
So one of them will be out next year.
So for next May it'll be and then the next one will be December. Yeah, and after that, I have no idea. But I do have one coming out in December this year that's been written. So
one already written. Okay.
Yeah. So it's ready to come out. I've got the last lot of edits for it due on Monday, I'd say, and and it's based on a lot of our fires that we had. Well, everywhere had fires in 2019, 2020, and I just wanted to write one set in a place very similar to my hometown, which isn't my hometown, but just to not celebrate, but the local community, it just brought out so many good things in our community that I knew of, and I'm sure it happened everywhere, so everyone can relate to it. And I just wanted to write characters that were everyday people, the farmers and the CWA ladies and the RSL staff and everybody that that aren't your typical heroes, but really were. So that was really lovely writing about that. So that'll be December.
No, they all sound really great. Yeah,
A little bit different.
Look forward to talking to you about all them when they come out.
We can sit here and go, remember when you panicked and didn't think you'd have it done?
Geraldine's wondering if you think you'll write any more in the Callaghan series.
I was actually thinking I'd love to do another one that revisits the whole family, maybe not a standalone different characters, but I was thinking about doing the family in one book type thing. That could be book number 3, actually. There you go. In fact, thank you very much. I think that will be book number 3. But yeah, that could be a goer.
And Belinda's wondering, with having written so many books, do you have a favourite character?
It is really hard to pick a favourite because, I don't know, because maybe because of the way I write. If I maybe wrote just one book at a time and concentrated on it, I probably would like them a lot more. But I don't know, it's really hard. I love my Poppy's Dilemma story because that became so personal when I was researching it, because it had so much of a local connection, and it was just amazing. Alec McLean, the soldier that was the true life inspiration for that, I ended up with letters that he'd written from the trenches in France and stuff, like these letters and things, and it's just such a connection to a person that is dead type thing. Like, but it's just that connection that I had, and I think that made that story so much more personal and lovely. But yeah, I kind of like all of them. Like, you do get attached to all of them, but then you sort of got to let them go and do their own thing and move on to the next one and make them awesome too. But I must say, Stuart, out of this one, Take Me Home, he was rather nice, and I do really miss him, and I do kind of feel like I need to write another book about him.
Yeah, that's why I was wondering if you ever think about bringing some in for a cameo appearance or...
Yeah, occasionally. And it is interesting when the only time I've really done that was with the book that had the same character in 2 different books. And it was interesting doing that for the first time, because normally when you've got a character and you start a new book, you've got to learn all about that character, and as you're writing, you're learning about them. But I had this character that I'd already written, and it was so easy to just slip back into that character, and it was really interesting. It was the first time I'd done that. So yeah, I'm looking actually forward to doing that again somewhere down the line with someone, because you've sort of got them established and they already are real to you in a sense. So it's just like getting to know them again and writing their story of what they're like now.
Maybe Stuart could be new book number 4.
Yeah, well, yes, that could actually have solved that problem too. This has been a really good idea. It's like a brainstorming.
We're solving all your...
Yeah. Thanks, guys.
But tell me, Carly, how many drafts do you do before you hand it in to your publisher? I know that you say everyone gets the red pen marks through their work, but do you work on the drafts, or how many drafts would you do?
I kind of don't do like set numbers 1, 2, 3. I kind of write, then I'll go back, and I often will start rereading, probably because I have to actually figure out what that book was about when I go back to it again. And then as I'm doing that, I usually tend to think, oh no, I need to do this, so I rewrite. I kind of do my multiple drafts as I go. So there probably is quite, 5 or 6 by the time you get to the end of the book, but you've only really got the one. But I don't normally just write it right through and then go back and start again. It's kind of a constant thing. I'm going back all the time. And then I do, of course, go back at the end and read it right through. So there's always tweaking and changes and stuff. But I don't really count how many I do, but there's probably a lot if you want to sit and think about it, which is really bad. So I don't think about it. So I'll just say 1.
Yeah, perfect.
Cassie says she's never read any of your books. Do you have a suggestion of where she should start?
just pick a place, really. Well, it's kind of the beauty of not writing a lot of books that are connected, because you can actually start anywhere. It doesn't really matter. But the Callahan series is always, I find with my new readers, that's where they come in at. For some reason, they find the Callahan series and they start there. I guess that's a good place. You could start with them, or anywhere.
And I'd have to say, like, your latest one certainly is a great place to start as well. I haven't quite finished it. I've got about 100 pages left to go, and at the moment I'd say it's certainly looking like a 5-star read to me.
Ooh, well, stop now. Don't finish it. Quick, while we're ahead.
I'm sure it won't disappoint me at the end.
No, let's hope not.
Geraldine's wondering where she can get your military books from.
They are available on, they're on Amazon, but I have a feeling they're only as ebooks at the moment. I do have to sort that out one day when I have time and actually try and figure out how to do all the rest. But at the moment, they're up on as ebooks. So try Amazon.
Okay, thanks for that. And we've got lots of people saying that they'd love to see, now I've forgotten what his name was, Stuart.
Yes.
Yeah, Stuart in another book. There's lots of people who are all for that.
Yes, yeah. No, well, I do, the more I was thinking about when I started hearing the feedback and panicking that, oh my God, I feel like I will write a second book where we pick up that story. And and again, I don't think it's going to be your typical rural fiction where it'll be very much their romance story. I think because this has got so much real life stuff in it, it'll probably be not as romantic as people are probably going to be expecting. But, you know, I think Elle and Stuart were a great pair, and I think they will go on to do great things, but I don't think it's going to be lovey-dovey and very easy to start with.
And Jacinta's wondering about your research, how you go about research and what sort of research you might be doing.
It depends on the book. Some books you need a lot of research. Other books you just need to find bits and pieces. I'm not really a professional in anything, so I try to not write too much about something I don't know about, because there's nothing worse than someone writing stuff and making it up and getting it wrong. But there are times where you're writing something and you do need to find out stuff. I tend to just track people down. I'm like a stalker. I'll stalk people and ask them for help and explain what I need. And I'm very lucky that my Facebook is just a wealth of knowledge. People know people and can put you in touch with people. And I think that's usually the best kind of research. If you're researching a paramedic, find a paramedic and talk to them. Like, you're going to get the real version of things. And I've been so lucky that so many people that I do ask for help are so willing to read over stuff and just point out, we would never say that, or this isn't quite right, or, you know, and my own family, I've got nurses, so it's really good. Anything medical, I can just put down with things like that. And it's just, and it is amazing. You can reach out to find so many people that you didn't really know were doing certain things. I often put a call out for things, and people I've known for ages say, well, I'm a such and such. It's like, oh, well, there you go. So it's a really good way of getting to know your Facebook people too. And at the moment, actually, there's I've been buying lots of research stuff for my military and World War II stuff. That's really interesting. So I've got lots of reading ahead of me this weekend, especially. And I do love doing the old traditional research of looking books up and reading things and finding out stuff. It's always interesting.
Yeah. And I have to say, I really love all the posts you do on your Facebook page. I like seeing your horses.
They feature a bit.
Yeah.
And the guinea fowl and everything else. Yes.
Yeah.
I do like to break book writing up with real life. It's not classy on the farm, I can tell you now. I think that's actually another part of why I haven't been sitting down writing lately. I get distracted very easily by all these animals, so I might need to stop playing with the animals so much too.
Nalima's wondering if you have any rural romance authors that you really enjoy reading yourself.
There are so many amazing rural authors in Australia. Like, we have got the best little community, and they're all gorgeous, and they're all down to earth and helpful and friendly. I don't really read much of rural fiction because I guess in the back of my mind, I'm always terrified that somehow, some way, I'm going to latch onto something and put it in one of my books. I don't know why, but it's a real fear of mine. So I don't tend to read a lot of rural fiction. I did before I was writing it. Loved it. It was the best genre. And in fact, I don't get a lot of reading time in general anymore. I should make time, but I think the animals push that time out the window. So as much as I used to love reading, I really haven't done as much as I used to in the last few years with writing. So if I do read, I read sort of a wide variety of things with different things. I like rom-coms, I like military, I like suspense, I like the, Australian suspense stuff, detective stuff. I really like a wide variety of different books, but I don't tend to read our genre because, I don't know. And because I'm writing it so much, I think I do like to have that break.
Yeah. And could you tell us what you've been reading lately?
It's been a lot of research stuff actually, but really good books. A lot of Australian military stuff, a lot of non-fiction. Off the top of my head, I haven't got them. They're all on my Facebook page. I've been putting them up lately. But a lot of stuff more for my research side of things than actually book reading at the moment. But I'll have to make time and do some proper reading because I do miss it. I think I just need to get a few books written first and then I can sit back and read.
I'm the same as you, Carly. I like non-fiction books as part of research.
It's just so interesting. You learn so much. And I'm always boring my family with stuff. Did you know? They don't like it when I'm doing research, I don't think. But it's just so interesting when you find out so many different things on different subjects. So,
have you got something that you could share that you found with your research that really, really surprised you?
Not off the top of my head. No, but I did a lot of research with I've got a couple of different books. One sort of centers on World War One, Poppy's Dilemma, and then there's a couple that were in World War Two. But my light horse research, when I wrote the If Wishes Were Horses, it's the first time I used our Brumbies in those, and I hadn't had Brumbies until after that book. That's what actually got me addicted to Brumbies. And it was researching a lot of the light horse stuff was just heartbreaking. Oh my God. They just were so tough. And so it is no wonder these horses are amazing because they were the only sort of horses that could have done what was done. And without them, we wouldn't have got the wins and the battles that we did. And I think Australian light horses really saved the war in a lot of cases. It was just amazing, and they just did it so hard. And only one horse came back. Like, I was devastated after they sent thousands and thousands of these horses that they caught from our national parks and where mine come from too. They just never came home, and that was just heartbreaking. But just so proud, and it just does make you feel so proud of your heritage and everything that we've done, just all that sort of research. I just love the history side of research. It's amazing.
I'm really interested in the medics book that you're writing at the moment. Is that going to be set in like an Afghanistan veteran or earlier?
Yeah, Afghanistan is at the moment where I'm setting it. I haven't done that one yet. I haven't done any of the more modern wars yet, so this will be interesting. And it's sort of the beginning, it's set there, but it's more when she comes home. So, yeah, we have got war settings, but it's not really the whole way through the book. So, but it's been interesting. It's really I don't know. I guess in the back of my mind, used to always watch it on the news. Like, it doesn't seem that long ago, but it was a long time ago now. And I do, now that I'm researching it and reading what these people were going through, I don't know. I wish I had been paying more attention or something. I think they started putting it on telly all the time, and then it sort of just faded off. But they went through so much more after that. So, yeah, we've got just amazing people doing amazing things for us. So they do it tough.
And lots of PTSD now from those veterans.
Yeah, and I mean, it is so understandable to see how that could be if, you know, their everyday is just so, they would be on just hyper overdrive, being so aware of everything, so suspicious of everything, and to come home and not have that, I think would be horrific. It would be so hard to just go down the street or, you know, just go to the beach or do something. It would be very, very difficult doing everyday things. And I think it's also the home life thing. It really tugs at my heart, because it's so hard. They leave their families behind, and then they've got to come back, and they're like not fitting in. They're strangers to their own family, and that must be heartbreaking. So I really, really want to explore that and find out more about it. And also, I think I've kind of been leading up to it, because a lot of my books, not intentionally, but a lot of them do have a lot of this different things with returned veterans. The last book, Someone Like You, was actually, the horses were used for therapy, and it ended up being with veterans as well as all sorts of people from all sorts of walks of life. But yeah, I think, I don't know, I haven't been meaning to do it, but it seems to be happening in a lot of the books that lead up to this. So it'll be good to sort of focus on that in a book.
And Fiona's wondering, before you were mentioning about your guinea fowl, whether your guinea fowl will actually end up making an appearance in any of your books.
They do make an appearance. They're actually in my December book.
Okay.
Bloody Dave is in the December book. So, yeah, he features. Yeah, they had to get in there somewhere, because they drive me insane. They may as well come in useful for something. They do nothing else.
And you're one of Global Girls Online Book Club's associated authors. I'm just wondering what you like about Global Girls Online Book Club.
It's so awesome. These talks and these Zoom things are just so great. And I've actually had a lot of books on my list that I'm going to get to, because I keep listening to all the interviews, and they're so interesting. And you see, it's just exposes you to so many different authors, different genres. I think that's great. And I mean, and I'm not a very social person, so being online in a group is really cool. I feel like we need T-shirts or something. Be a gang.
Yeah.
Oh, I like that.
That's a good idea.
I feel we should. No, I think it's lovely that, and it's global. Like, you don't often get a lot of things. And again, it brings you back to the reading. Like, people are reading the same books from all over the world, and you know, and liking them or not liking them, depending. It's just interesting that you can bring a heap of people from all over the world together in a group. It's lovely.
Well, did you have any more questions before we finish?
Oh, no, I just want to echo that too, Carly, that being online is really great, especially during the past 18 months of the pandemic. You know, it's really, the book club has really helped people connect and keep connected, and also make new connections. So we're all in this together, you know. It's been really lovely.
And I also find for myself, like before COVID and that, I wasn't someone who would go out somewhere to go to an author talk or something like that. I'd rather be in the comfort of my home and be able to just log in and watch someone online as well. So that's that's probably one of the good things about COVID. It's brought that a lot more.
Absolutely, yeah.
No, it's great. You don't actually have to. I'm only dressed.
Yeah.
Top up, so it's really good. No, I'm not.
Yes, you are.
But it's different when you've got to go out and do a live event. You do have to put a lot more effort into things, and yeah, it's lovely for us
Yeah.
homebodies. It's really nice.
But you can't reach as many people on a live event anyway.
Mm.
You know, where you can reach thousands on a online
Yeah.
event.
Yep.
And
No,
people
it's
can
really
tune
great.
in later as well and watch it later if it's not at a convenient time or.
Yep. No, it's great.
Well, before we finish off, do you want to let people know how they can keep in touch with what you're up to?
Pretty much Facebook. I'm there all the time. Again, Facebook could be the other reason I'm not writing my book. I'll find lots of reasons I'm not writing these books. Yeah, mainly my Facebook page. I do have a web page, but I sometimes don't get on there and update it very often. But yeah, there's a Carly Lane author page, and there's my Carly Lane other page. So if you want more guinea fowl and horses, just my Carly Lane page, you'll get that. And I try to keep the books on the Carly Lane author page, but sometimes the horses sneak over there too.
Well, thanks so much for our chat today. Yeah, really enjoyed it and look forward to you being more involved in the group and chatting to you on more occasions.
It'd be lovely. Yeah, I can't wait.
It's been great. And thanks to everyone who's joined in and all the questions that we've had.
Thanks everybody.
Thanks. Bye, everybody.
Bye.